welcome everybody. It's 9:02. The purpose today is to provide an update on Trove, and I will towards the end rely on Susan and Paula also to maybe give some more technical details about what the next steps might look like. So Adele, do you want to start with the screen sharing process? So that this is us, and yeah, can everybody see it? I think so. I can. It's working for me. Thank you. So we might just go to the next slide. Thanks everybody for joining us today. So hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I think most people do. My name is Romola Hollywood, and I'm the President of New South Wales PLA and also Councillor and Deputy Mayor for Blue Mountain City Council. And our executive decided that it would be good to have a town hall meeting to bring people up to date with the campaign that we've been running around Trove, and to have an opportunity to look at the next steps as well. But first of all, I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country. So the New South Wales Public Libraries Association acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting, and we are all meeting many different lands across New South Wales. And for me, it's the Darug and Gundungurra people in the Blue Mountains. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of First Nations peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands, waters and communities of New South Wales. So thank you everybody for joining. And as I said, the purpose for today is to provide an update on the work that we've been doing on Trove, but also outline where we've landed now and what the next steps might look like, particularly around cataloguing and interlibrary loans. And another purpose for today really is to acknowledge the work and support of New South Wales PLA members. I don't think we could have achieved what we did without the support of members and the active contributions from members. We also want to acknowledge the support and work of the State Library and ALIA in the advocacy to save Trove. So we'll go to the next slide. So I just want to cast everybody's minds back to April, May 2022. So, nearly, probably not quite 18 months, but certainly close to. People will remember that the National Library announced significant changes to the subscription fees for Trove partners, and that this included significant increases in the subscription fees for public libraries. And we were told that the changes would involve fees to contribute to and access the Trove database, fees for the National Library's cataloguing services, and fees for interlibrary loans. And some libraries were set to have increases of up to 200%, and they were going to grow year on year. So we could see that this was actually going to have a massive impact on public libraries, large and small, across New South Wales. So we go to the next slide. So the advocacy started almost straight away, and I want to acknowledge the work of the then President, Dallas Tout, who really took this on as well, very much concerned about the impact for Trove and the impact of our National Archive as something that records our history and in a digital form for people and communities to be able to access, but also to preserve their histories for future generations. So in May, June, New South Wales PLA and the State Library met with the National Library to try to convince the National Library to reduce the subscriptions fees, saying that public libraries don't actually earn income. Public libraries are funded from council budgets, and increases could impact on service level and service delivery, or also see libraries actually dropping out of Trove, which would also create gaps in our national database. So our president, then President Dallas Tout, wrote to the Minister for the Arts, Tony Burke, calling on the federal government to increase the funding for Trove. And I just want to remind people that the federal government federal Labor government had only just really come in. So this was sort of something that sort of sat between the changes of government. Also, quite significantly, the New South Wales PLA then President Dallas Tout and the State Librarian John Valence also wrote to the Director General of the National Library, calling for a 12-month delay in the implementation of the Trove fees, and looking for other options such as a consortium arrangement for libraries and trying to maintain interlibrary loan arrangements. So really trying to be solutions focused. But I do think it was quite significant that we actually got the State Librarian to write as well. And so there was a very strong partnership between our organisation and the State Library. So next slide. In September 2022, people might remember that New South Wales PLA held an online meeting with Trove staff and about 50 library managers to try and find ways to reduce the subscription fees. We also got a very odd reply from, on behalf of the Minister for the Arts, Tony Burke, from the Acting Assistant Secretary of, as you can read, Cultural and Collections and Cultural Heritage, stating in fact that funding had increased and that the Minister was now consulting on a new national cultural policy. What that indicated to us is that there wasn't actually a very good understanding at the senior government level with an incoming Labor government around what this actually meant. So we did a survey of members to try and get more information, but also followed up with Susan Templeman, who is my local member, in Macquarie, and was appointed as a special envoy for the arts to try and get a meeting with the Minister for the Arts, use their lobbying power, and also to say to them, this is actually a really serious issue for libraries and not well understood. So that was lobbying behind the scenes and also directly with government, but also trying to build awareness around for library managers and what the impacts would be for libraries. So next slide. So our activity increased, and this is where I want to pay tribute to the motions that were brought forward to the New South Wales PLA AGM. So we had the outcome of the survey showing that already 13% of libraries had withdrawn from Trove due to the funding increases. And we had motions from Northeast Zone and Southwest Zone saying that we need to continue this advocacy. So we really appreciated the engagement and input from the individual public libraries, but also through the zone networks. And then we found that the whole campaign was gathering momentum across the board. You'll be very familiar with this. This was just a couple of screenshots, but there were many, many more. We had, lots of different people realising that not so much for public libraries, but just the impact of potentially limited funding for Trove and winding back of Trove and what that would mean for our nation's history. So it really started to get the attention of the federal government, I think, including a petition which I think, can you see it there? It had 33,000 signatures, which just shows the community support as well for Trove. Next slide. So through January and February, while there was a lot going on in the media, we also felt that we needed to step up our advocacy. So we wrote to the Minister seeking a meeting again. We also lodged a pre-budget submission to the federal government's budget process. And that was recommended by Susan Templeman's Chief of Staff. And I acknowledge Adele having to do that in January, which is never the most fun time to be doing anything. I'm trying to have a bit of a break. I also want to acknowledge that at the same time, the Australian Local Government Association's conference or National Assembly was calling for motions, and there's quite a long lead time. So in February, we actually had, you can see there, Broken Hill Council, Albury City Council, Blue Mountain City Council, Kiama Council and Wallara Council submitting motions to the Australian Local Government Conference. And I want to just highlight that in New South Wales, we were the only state at the national conference that actually put forward effectively 5 motions to the Australian Local Government Conference around saving Trove. So it was a really great partnership between New South Wales PLA putting it out there, but individual councils and through library managers and or councillors putting these motions forward, which is terrific. And at the same time, we also had councils moving motions, and there was a question on notice from some of the independents in South Australia around Trove as well. So we had everything was heating up and heading in the direction of change needed to happen. So, yep, next slide. So that's just an example that you probably have others where your council might have moved a specific motion to write to your local MP. We don't have really good data on how many councils actually did that, but this was an example, and this came up as a story the week before the big announcement. So we can go to the next slide. So on the 3rd of April, 2023, very exciting news that did make the headlines of a significant announcement for to basically save the Trove archive of $33 million over 4 years. And the idea was that would actually enable Trove to be accessible and support the work of Trove partners. However, there wasn't anything in any of the announcements about public libraries, and we sought to clarify this through, I think, Adele, you actually contacted the the National Library, I think, and I also contacted Susan Templeman's office, and the answer was this is a effectively an operational decision, how the National Library uses this money and whether it will in fact deal with the subscription fees and the other issues around interlibrary loans and cataloguing. So if we go to the next slide. So in July 2023, so we're getting closer to the real time, our executive officer met with the National Library to discuss the issues and really highlight that we're not, that we actually still need as public libraries to have a change in terms of the 3 key issues. And the executive also met with ALIA to try and better understand the opportunities and possible next steps for New South Wales public libraries as a whole. And when we met with ALIA, what we discovered was that the Trove discovery and delivery component, that means uploading materials that public libraries do, and also people being able to access that either through a public library, that will remain free. So we've actually managed to achieve one win, which is that that will remain free for all public libraries and end users. However, the costs for cataloguing and interlibrary loans will remain, though it's expected that these costs might reduce over time as new IT infrastructure's deployed. What we learnt from ALIA as well is that these 2 components of cataloguing and interlibrary loans are actually not something that the National Library of Australia is required to deliver for us. It's evolved over time, and so from that point of view, it's something that they have been doing, but at the same time, it's well within their rights to do it as a cost recovery, on a cost recovery basis. So we are at this point where we're, maybe we just go to the next slide, where we've had a key win in relation to uploading and accessing the material to Trove, but we actually need to do a bit more work with the State Library and ALIA on what might be some of the options around interlibrary loans, and also what the options might be for cataloguing. So it's not that we've ended the campaign so much, but that we actually need to regroup. And I might just throw maybe to Paula or Susan, if you want to, as library managers, or Adele, if you've got any more technical points that you want to add there, or we can just go to questions.
Only that, good morning, everyone. Only that the South Zone did a pretty comprehensive review of interlibrary loan services across the metro area, I think across New South Wales. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jody. It's a very good report, so I'd encourage everybody to have a read of that, because that will give us a good understanding of where we're at and a good basis of having the conversation about what is possible moving forward, but also to acknowledge that the cost of delivery of interlibrary loans, certainly in New South Wales, has increased this year. So a lot of us have had to reduce our services from, say, 2 days to 1 day, just to save the costs on delivery. So we are at a bit of a, thanks, Jody. It was a report across New South Wales. We can share that again if people don't have the report, but we are at a crossroads. So it's a good time to start talking about the future of interlibrary loans.
I can send that report out to the manager's e-list.
Thanks, Adele.
And I think it's good to be able to understand that this is an area that we will, need to work on because of the impacts of the changes to Trove, but also that we haven't really, we're not in a strong position, I guess, to just keep calling at a sort of a public and political level for change. We've actually got to go back and do a little bit more work. So are there any questions? Do we want to, has anybody got any questions about the material? How are other states responding? Adele might be better placed to answer that one. My understanding is that we're the most probably engaged state, I think. Is that fair, Adele?
Yeah, the East Coast, so New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria seem to be the most active, with us being the most active out of all of that. But where the 3 eastern states are the biggest users as well. So that sort of makes sense in that we're the ones that are active. Yeah, there's the other states, Queensland and Victoria, I know have written and sent letters, as we have as well, but and they're quite keen that if anyone takes any action, the 3 of us agreed that we're happily do it together and join forces. So it's just a bit of a wait and see at this stage to see if anyone else does anything, or if what we decide head that direction as well. So yeah, nothing more than what we've done at this stage, probably a little bit less than what we've done.
Yeah. Susan?
Just with the petition you mentioned earlier, so where was that done? So it was done across New South Wales, or And
I
how
think
did that break up sort of country metropolitan? So the impact on the customer,
on
the
So
Yeah.
the petition was actually a public petition about saving Trove,
Yeah,
and rather than specifically around libraries. So it was
yeah,
actually
okay.
about saving the digital database, and it was a change.org petition. But it was the sort of thing that was meaning that because I think it actually, because you had sort of you know, environment and heritage people. You had all different people talking about the need to protect our digital archive. And so the petition was just another example of the pressure that the government was coming under to actually make some announcement. And they effectively made an announcement, well before the budget in May. So, it was a major announcement that they wanted to just get out of the way. Like, we don't need this campaign to continue to escalate. So we're one small component, I guess, of a broader campaign to save Trove. Yeah.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Anything about cataloguing? No. Can't see any more. I can't see. Most people have got their hands off, screens off, but I'm assuming that. So really, I guess the idea of this presentation was to just give a short, sharp overview of the work that we've been doing and where we're up to. So I think, in summary, the good news is that there won't be fees and charges for uploading material to Trove, that will be able to continue. But we need to look more at these operational kind of components around cataloguing and interlibrary loans. And it feels like the energy around interlibrary loans is probably where we'll start. And but if anybody has any specific kind of questions or information around cataloguing that we might be able to move forward on, that would be really helpful as well. So they're the things that are still on New South Wales PLA's agenda, but obviously also on your agenda, and we really look forward to working with you on those in the coming months. So I think, does anybody have anything else they want to add?
Hi, I'm Kathy from Shoalhaven Libraries. Sarah did put in her apologies. I'm one of the managers in the Shoalhaven Library branches, so I was here in her absence today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Thank you. All righty. Well, I guess I'll just, I think somebody's
Let's make one comment, Romola.
Sure. Yeah.
It's only just, everything you've been through is great, and the executive have done all we can at that political level, like you said. And the cataloguing and the library loans, this is really where the beauty of the membership of the association comes to the fore, because this is where all the practitioners are.
Yep.
And you all know the business better than me. I'm only a pretend librarian. So if anyone has any idea that in any way, and I'll have a look at this report when it comes out about the interlibrary loans and cataloguing, any options that we can do to minimise costs by doing things cooperatively, that's the way to go. And that's where practitioners come in, because you're doing it every day. So, I implore people to have a conversation, talk at meetings, think of different ways we can do it to mitigate the costs, that's all.
Yeah. And Patu Clerk's just put in the chat, in case people can't see it, that we have been finding other ways for interlibrary loans and cataloguing. So thanks for the update. And I think that's a really good point, that some libraries might be finding a workaround. And so in a way, that the key components, and as Dallas said, of the sort of the political campaign are really over. And it's really probably more about building a strong relationship with ALIA, which we are doing. We've been actually working much more closely with ALIA on a range of things, including sort of the book challenges that have been occurring in some libraries across the state. So we will continue that collaborative working relationship with ALIA, and taking some guidance from ALIA, because they're really our eyes and ears at the national level, and looking at the politics of it as well. And also that, we build a productive working relationship with the National Library of Australia, who really have been, experienced themselves years of underfunding. And so, rather than that sort of, adversarial approach, we really need to be taking a strong collaborative approach.
I've just got a question about the cataloguing. I'm Linda from Bega Valley. So I wasn't aware about the cataloguing charges or potential for that. So how would that play out? Is the suggestion that we would have to pay we do a lot of copy cataloguing. So is that the suggestion, that we would pay for those records to be to pull into our system?
That's my understanding, that there will be a charge. I might throw to a library manager just to make sure that I throw to Paula or someone who.
Linda, you're already paying it as part of your cataloguing.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just
right.
that the costs have increased, and so
okay, great. Thank you.
Fees gone up. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Adele.
Yeah. So if you can cover that cost and the system is working for you, then we're hoping, and the National Library has said that those costs might come down over time, because they're looking at some, systems improvements. But that's the situation for your library, and you're making a choice that system works for you. But yeah, it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can really effectively advocate for change, because it's actually something that they're not required to do, as Alia's explained to us, under their act. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So I'll just go to Jodie and then Paula.
Thank you, Romola. Just to pick up on what Patu's comment was about, finding workarounds to run interlibrary loans and cataloguing, which is great, and people need to be able to keep carrying out and delivering their service. The problem is that there is then a risk if people stop adding their holdings to Trove, because you won't be able to find where these books are eventually. So that's the greatest risk. So to me, we need to try and advocate and keep working towards a solution where people are encouraged to add those holdings to the national database. That's all.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents worth.
I agree, Jodie. And I was just going to say, maybe it's worthwhile, if there are people looking, maybe we need to put together a little working group or something that can really focus of technical experts on these particular issues, and come up with some key points about, why it's really important for us to continue to upload the records. Because really, if we're thinking about it, there aren't many other options for us. But if we can explore those options and say this is the only option we've got, maybe produce a little bit of a report, and then we've got some technical basis. Just a suggestion.
Yeah. Adele?
I know that the National Library has a committee formed at the moment. There are public library staff on that. It's they're represented, the people on that committee are representative of all aspects of librarians. However, I know that there are public librarians on that, and one of them is from Queensland, who I work quite closely with up there. So I can keep up to date with what's happening there, and feed things back. But I know that the contract has gone out for the new interlibrary loans module for Trove. So it's just a matter of time of assessing and all of those sorts of things, and whether they find something that is going to work for them. So, but I can keep everyone up to date on that aspect as well.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Yes, I'd like to clarify on what we're doing at Bathurst Library. So yes, we have found a workaround with cataloging and interlibrary loan, like I think other libraries have been doing. This in no means that we're not uploading our record. We've kept a very small membership, so but we've got very limited access. For example, we don't have access to a dashboard, so we're very limited in what we're still in there with Trove collaborative services, but at the minimum cost. And this was done to basically because it was shocking price hike for us. But so this is a workaround, not a permanent one, I hope, and any collaborative ways we could find with the interlibrary on the new software or anything we could do together would be great. So I definitely would support that. But it is it has been a good exercise to look at how we use the cataloging records. We ended up outsourcing most of our cataloging, so that solved that problem. But the interlibrary loan, yes, I think you're right. That's the main focus.
That's great. Thank you, Patu. That's lovely. And yeah, certainly we will. It's probably the way of talking about it is sort of more insider advocacy, that we will just continue to work through the committee structures and also with Alia and try and have a constructive relationship with the National Library, noting that really these services are things that they've been providing, but really they could walk away from them. We don't want them to do that. We don't want them to be in that situation where they feel it's all too complicated. So it's about coming up with some solutions as well and working towards those. So it is next steps, but it's also like the agenda is not set. We're still probably at that stage of looking at what the options are. So if you go away and have a think about it in your library, but also in your zone discussions, and want to bring things forward to New South Wales PLA, that's really would be appreciated and very helpful.
Zach's got his hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure what you can see, and you've also got someone in chat as well.
Oh, okay. Goodness me. Okay, so Zach, going to Zach. Sorry, Zach, I didn't actually see you.
That's all right, no problem at all. Zach Armstead for Riverina Regional Library. I just had a quick question about whether we know what the actual cost is of running the national database for the cataloguing and interlibrary loan component, because I imagine that the costs to all of the libraries across the nation are quite substantial. And understanding server maintenance costs and things like that, I find it challenging to believe that paying $8,000 for probably a majority of libraries across the nation a year would be a reasonable cost for the server maintenance and maintenance on that product. So I'm wondering whether that's something that we can find out and work towards, whether it's something, I know it's not ideal, but something that the New South Wales state can look at for an interlibrary loan or a cataloguing database if it proves that the National Library is just too expensive in the long run and the costs don't actually decrease.
I think that's a good point. And I think through the committee process and through Alia, we might be able to ask some of those more specific questions. Alia might actually know the answer. They were really, when we had the meeting with Alia, they were very across a lot of the details. Yeah, I'll just maybe throw to Adele. Did you have any comment there?
Only that a lot of the funding that they received was going sorry, I'm just trying to get my words right, was going towards updating or purchasing new software. The problem was that the software was out of date, not supported anymore, which was increasing the costs. So by purchasing new IT software and infrastructure, they're hoping that those costs will then come down, and if the costs come down, that will be spread across everybody who utilises the services. That's as much as I know at this stage. But we have had some very brief conversations about a New South Wales something or other, but we've not gone into it too far. But, you know, depending on what happens in the future, that is something that maybe or maybe not we may be able to look at. So, yeah, we'll keep investigating and seeing if we can find out some more information around that, Zach.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, are there any other questions that I have? Oh, there was the chat.
Yep.
So what was in the chat as a question? Or is that answered? Does anyone have any issues tracking the number of searches and catalogue services? We use cataloguing services only sporadically. However, our number of searches is close to 20,000. We cannot work out how it's counted. I don't know.
A couple more responses there as well.
Yeah, if you contact Trove, they'll be able to help you with that, which I put in the chat.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. All right.
Karen's a comment in there too.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll keep it. We will keep a record of the chat as well. I hope you've found this session useful. It's certainly been great for us as the executive to be able to feed back to you about where things are up to, so that we're all on the same page, and but also that, you know, we do want to continue working on these outstanding issues, but just how we will be doing it will be probably more through the committee process and working collaboratively with you. And also the State Library is very supportive as well, so those conversations will be happening. So pretty much watch this space, but also keep in touch as always if you've either got questions or observations that might be useful in terms of moving forward on this. So at this point, I think I'll draw the session to a close and just say thank you very much for joining today, and wish you all a really beautiful Tuesday. So thank you so much. See you then.
Thanks so much, Romola.
Pleasure.
And Adele.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I might just stay on the line for a moment. Adele.